Welcome to my channel. I am Laria Lipkins, and I have been doing sales training and consulting for over 15 years, and I have a ton of experience doing high-ticket sales and working with corporate clients. So in this video, what I'm going to talk about are the 5 steps to either get your first or your next corporate client. And this is going to be applicable to you if you are a consultant, a coach, a service provider, or there's just some way that you can serve corporate clients. I'm going to break this down to 5 simple steps that you can start using today. All right, so the first step, if you want to work with corporate clients, is that you have to get very clear on the problem that you solve for corporate clients. Now, this is really important because a lot of people, especially female entrepreneurs in particular, get really caught up in, I'm passionate about this and I'm passionate about that. And unfortunately, corporate clients don't care about your passion. What they really care about is what problem can you solve for me? What problem can you solve for my team, the organization, my employees, my customers even? And so you want to be thinking about what is that problem that you are uniquely qualified to solve. So in my case, I do a bunch of training with sales leaders and sales teams, sometimes even customer service. But I help them generate more revenue. I help them close more sales. I help them increase their conversions. I help them shorten how long it takes to close that deal, right? And so the problem that I solve is very clear. You want to be thinking about for yourself as kind of your own expertise is what is that problem that you solve? And let's pretend that you are a coach and maybe you coach people on how to dress the right way, dress for their style, their body type, their complexion, right? That can still translate for a corporate client. You might work with managers, or you might work with young professionals. You might work with a sales team and that's doing virtual sales calls, and their appearance is very important in their role, right? And so again, the first thing that you want to get clear about is let's forget about your passion and let's forget about what it is that you actually do, and let's really focus more so on what is that problem that you solve. Do you help with time management? Do you help people be more productive? Do you help them complete their projects? Do you help them present themselves with impact? Do you help them with communication skills, with customer service? Like, you want to get crystal clear about what that problem is. Because if you're not clear about the problem, if you're not clear about the problem, then your prospects will also not be clear about the problem or the value that you can add. All right, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is once you've identified what is the problem that you can solve, you want to really profile your ideal client. Now, when you think about your ideal client, it's really kind of like 2 parts. One part is what type of organizations do you want to work with? Do you want to work with small businesses? Do you want to work with mid-market businesses where they're a little bit larger and they're really in growth mode, typically for a mid-market account? Do you want to work with enterprise accounts? These are going to be well-known kind of marquee accounts, name brand organizations that you want to work with. And you might want to work with all 3, right? But you want to get clear about, what type of corporate client do you want to work with? Are there certain industries or company sizes? Are there certain departments or roles? Are there certain genders that you want to work with? Do they need to be at a certain level of their career, perhaps? And although what you do might work for everybody and anybody, if you don't really narrow down or profile your ideal client, it's going to be very difficult once we get to the further step when we're talking about now we're actually prospecting in step 4, right? And so the more narrow you can focus, it doesn't mean that you can't have prospects outside of that or that you can't have clients outside of that. It's really just figuring out who that market is so that when we start prospecting, you know where your best time is best spent. But the other side is that it's going to make it easier for you to find them. And then obviously you can have clients that don't necessarily fit that mold or those parameters that you can still serve, but you only have a limited amount of time, right? And so the more that you can hone in on who that profiling the ideal client, it will also make it not only easier to find them, but then also have better messaging that's going to appeal to them when you're talking about the problem that you solve. Right, so step 3, once you have identified the problem that you solve and you've profiled your ideal client, the next thing that you want to do is think about what is your profitable offer, right? So this is where we're finally thinking about what is it that we sell. And notice that this is step 3, not step 1, right? So a lot of people, once they think about, oh, this is what I'm passionate about, the next thing that they think about is what is it that they want to sell. But if you're not clear about the problem that you solve, nor about your ideal client, then you might have an offer that's not going to match up. Right? And so when I talk about your profitable offer, what I mean is, how do you want to work with corporate clients? You can do speaking, you could do coaching, you could do masterminds, you might do consulting like I do, right? You might do training, I do that as well, or you might be a speaker, right? So training is ongoing. I'm meeting with this client repeatedly, whereas speaking might be a one-off speaking engagement that you're doing for their team. You could have physical products. You can have group coaching, one-on-one coaching, right? So you could be a service provider. So there are a number of ways that you can work with corporate clients. But the third thing that you want to think about is what way best fits your business and your life, right? And so, oh, by the way, you can do courses. So pretty much anything that you do B2C with a consumer, right, individual, you can typically translate as long as you're clear about the problem that you're solving for corporate clients. And so I suggest, if you're first starting out, that you maybe think about 1 to 2 ways that you want to work with corporate clients. And as you build your clientele, as you get more experience, then you might be expanding and offering different ways that you work with corporate clients. Now, step 4 is where we're going to start prospecting. So this is where we're going to start looking for that ideal client that we profiled in step number 2, which again is why it's so important that you get clear about who that person is, and that you get clear about the problem that you solve, because those 2 pieces are going to be really critical once we're in step 4 and we're actually doing some outreach. So there are a number of ways that you can find corporate clients. You can get on platforms like Upwork. I've actually booked several high 5-figure corporate clients coming from Upwork. And I know people think like, oh, people don't actually have a budget on Upwork. That is false, right? The great thing about Upwork is that you know that these people are proactively trying to solve a problem. They're proactively looking for an expert. So what you have to be able to do is have the skills to close those opportunities and know how to run a sales call, which we'll talk about in just a second. And so other things that you could do is getting on LinkedIn and posting on your social media. And as you're thinking about social media, you need to be in the areas where your prospects are hanging out. So if you want to grow your corporate business, you need to be where your corporate clients are. So if they're on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn, because posting a reel is not going to get you in front of them. If they are typically part of industry associations, then you want to be prospecting and reaching out to industry associations to do training for them, to do a webinar, to do a workshop, to speak at their conferences, to maybe write an article or a blog post, right? So you need to, again, getting clear on who your ideal client is will help you figure out where is this person most likely hanging out and what is going to be the easiest way for me to get in front of them. So one of my favorite ways to get corporate clients to do prospecting really at scale is through speaking at conferences and for industry associations. So an industry association represents a particular industry or group of people. Now, the reason that I love industry associations is that you tend to have a national association, state association, and even sometimes local associations. And so what you do is that you actually get to speak for their members, whether that is at a conference, convention, whether that's a webinar or an in-person workshop, and it really allows you to scale your efforts, and it gives you the potential to get multiple corporate clients at one time, because what you're doing is speaking for this webinar or at this workshop or for this convention, and there are dozens, hundreds, potentially even thousands of people in the room or online, and they get to hear you present for 60 to 90 minutes. And it is a great way to demonstrate your expertise. And it's a great way to sell without selling, right? And so I love trade associations and industry associations. They are like one of my go-to strategies for getting corporate clients. And then obviously you can do direct outreach. I actually booked an almost billion-dollar company, booked a contract with an almost billion-dollar company from a LinkedIn message that then led to a 15-minute Zoom call and a speaking engagement that then led to a 3-month project. And so there are a variety of ways to get in front of corporate clients, and there's a really good chance that your next or first corporate client is already in your network, or is already connected to somebody that can simply introduce you to them if you were to ask. And I actually have a client that went through my corporate client boot camp, and during the boot camp, it was a 2-day training, and then there was support on the back end, 30 days of support. It's kind of changed since then, but whenever she went to the corporate client boot camp, she actually had an opportunity that came up that was someone she already knew. It was actually a previous employer, and she ended up booking a really nice size contract with them, to the point where she even had to hire an assistant, right, while she was working her corporate full-time job. And so the point is, there are tons of ways to get in front of corporate clients. It's just you have to be intentional about it, and it becomes a whole lot easier when you are clear about your problem, you are clear about your ideal client, and you are clear about how you want to work with a corporate client. And then the last step is you need a process to convert them from a prospect to a paying client. And so this is where your sales process comes in. And so as you're reaching out to people, or as people are reaching out to you, you really need to know how to have an effective sales conversation. You need to know what questions to ask. You need to know how to identify their pains, their gaps, their goals, what is it that they're trying to accomplish. And you need to be able to present your profitable offer in a way where it is a no-brainer and they are happy paying your fees, right? So that is really the last thing that you need. So just as a brief recap, if you want to get your first or your next high-paying corporate client, the first thing that you need to do is get crystal clear about the problem that it is that you solve for a corporate client. The second thing that you want to do is to profile your ideal client. And then the third thing you want to do then is figure out, what is your profitable offer? How is it that you want to work with and serve corporate clients? Number 4 is really where we're prospecting, we're reaching out to people. Maybe you're doing podcast interviews, you're doing LinkedIn outreach, you're posting on social media, you are submitting to speak for industry associations, you're doing direct outreach, whatever makes sense for you. And then lastly, step 5 is that then you need a process to convert those prospects into paying clients. So I know that was a lot. If you want more information, I highly suggest that you download my Cash In on Corporate Playbook. It will walk you through these 5 steps, give you some exercises to get more clarity on these so that you don't have to start from scratch. All right, let me know in your comment below your biggest takeaway, and I look forward to hearing your success as you get your first or your next corporate client.